Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel. With me is my partner, Jen. Jen, thank you for being here.
Glad to
And
be here.
spring is supposedly showing up. We know we just passed a major tax deadline, and we have a few more deadlines that people are running towards. But as you really look towards, May and June and, late spring, Jen and I thought we would stop and talk about there might be some hard stuff coming up. And how do we tackle some of those topics, mostly people topics. So as HR professionals, be thinking about what your practice leaders and partners and managers might be facing in their departments that you might be able to help them with, and how we can craft some messages and talk straight, and what that might be. But there's some things like maybe some of the interns or staff have not completely worked out, and you might have some messages to deliver. Or it's performance review season. We're going to be entering that for many firms. We know come May, June, July as a common, review evaluation season. And so there might be some feedback to give, and or compensation messages to give that are not what people are expecting, or maybe they were expecting to get promoted after this season. So topics like that, what's next, after busy season, as we tie things up and ramp things up, in our service lines, what's next, over the summer. And for some, there's, continued projects and continued engagements. For others, it's, focusing on, other efforts. But as people emerge from this, spring deadline season, that might be a hard message to give. And so we just thought we would generate a few of those and talk about some messaging around that. And like I said, how to help your leaders, really, progress those messages, do what they need to do, have confidence in it, compassion, and talk straight while they're doing that.
I love and hate it, Tamera. Yay. The hard stuff. HR leaders, depending on the size of your firm, depending on the role that you play, you're either a trusted advisor to firm leaders, where you're trying to guide them and coach them in the messages they're going to give and the way that they're going to manage these difficult things. Or in some firms, the firms are small enough that the HR leaders in the room is actually sort of helping and supporting by conducting some of these tough meetings. So we're not really sure which role you'd be playing, but we thought we should just talk about some ideas, some things that we've seen that work or don't work around these hard HR things we do as we close the busy season. So I'll start us off, Tamera, with people that haven't worked out, whether or not they were interns, whether or not they were first years, or maybe they've been around a few years and they just aren't really getting to where you'd hope they'd be, and you're going to make a tough decision to let them go. And we do know that some firms do this as a kind of a ritual practice every year at the close of spring and fall busy season. They just assess their clients and their people and say, where are we really not going to be successful moving forward? And they deliver those tough messages. And so, we just want to recommend that you always think about first, like, what is our position statement here? What are we going to say? And clear that with the HR department if you happen to be a practitioner who's going to deliver that message, or with your labor council or whatever it may be. In my opinion, when you are ready to complete the relationship and have the person move on, less is more. So you're not giving a huge story and tons of details. We're not in turnaround mode. We're in departure mode. And so we aren't trying to A, justify the departure, or B, give them a bunch of details like they were going to stop and change the past or work on those things going forward. So, what kind of message you deliver depends on how straight you want to be. We would recommend the straightest possible. But you also don't want to be that person who ends someone's career because you make a pronouncement about them in some super judgment way or something. So it's something like, and Tamera, you can jump in here and help me. But it's something like, as we close this busy season, we just really feel like the level of work that you're producing isn't the level that we really need and expect at this time for your amount of experience or exposure. And we just don't feel like it's going to work out between our firm and you. It's just your experience and your output isn't where we need it to be. And at this point, we're ready to terminate our relationship with you, and today will be your last day. And that's it. And then they might say, why? And you say, because we really don't feel like the work that you're producing is at the level that we would expect. And you begin what we would call repeat mode. You don't embellish, you don't expand, you don't show examples. You just keep repeating. And you try not to repeat much because hopefully they'll stop asking, but you move into details of departure. So here's how we'll manage this departure, whatever that may be. It's easier for interns usually because they're expecting this thing to end. And they're just wanting to see if there will be an offer. That's what they want to know, an offer of employment or an offer for a next internship. So you're basically saying we're gonna pass on making an offer at this time. And that's easier. But if they're employed W-2, or a contractor, and they're not working out, you've got to have, that completion conversation. And in any case, you're going to have a security conversation about usernames, passwords, key cards into the building if they had them, that sort of thing. You're going to have to, if they're remote, return of equipment, all of those things that you will have wanted, as you would anytime you're terminating a relationship, to have a good checklist of and go through with them. And you just enter into those departure details. But less is more. Now, before you have that conversation with this person or with these people, if there are multiple of them, you want to have planned it out very carefully so that the timing of the conversation works with any sort of internal communications you should have first. So if the decisions were made by the department heads and HR is involved, then who needs to know? Does anyone need to know beforehand besides those parties? IT usually. They're a good party to have in the mix with us on these things, but who else needs to know? And we want to keep the circle of that small because we don't want this to leak out. But then directly following those conversations, we want to have some sort of a message out if they were employed by us that says, we wanted to let you all know that Susan, Bob, and Jim, first and last names, that they are no longer with our organization as we completed the busy season. And if you have any questions about their work assignments or anything that they worked on, please see so-and-so. And you keep it simple. We wish them the best in their career or whatever. That's the ideal way. Now, some people may come and ask you questions about that. How come? What did they do wrong? What did they not do right? And you have to say, you wouldn't want me to discuss your relationship and your performance with the firm with others. I can't discuss this with you either. Just trust us that it was the right decision for them and for us, and that we're wishing them the best possible, and that we're going to continue now to move on in our in our work together, and just keep it simple and keep the details clean. Avoid innuendo, avoid anything disparaging. Even if people think about those people that are being terminated, you don't want to get involved in that. They might say, well, I know why so-and-so is gone, and you're just not even going to rise into that. You're going to say, well, I'm glad you think and I really don't want to discuss that with you. You wouldn't want me to discuss your relationship with our firm with others, and I don't want to be unprofessional, so I'm not going to talk about it with you. And that usually shuts that stuff down. Any thoughts on all that, Tamera?
I think that sounds like a appropriate process. Not easy, but the more you think about it and think about those different steps, I think it's easier. One step I would add even before we come to this place, which is maybe another difficult place as we get into performance evaluation season, is the better job we do giving feedback, the easier, not easy, but the easier it is to have that conversation, maybe even to have the confidence to have that conversation. And hopefully if they have any level of self-awareness, less of a surprise for them, because that's where it can sometimes be difficult. And so we really want to, be providing feedback through busy season. We want to be really specific about feedback, not just do check the boxes, as we come into evaluation season, and provide, examples of where they're doing well, where they're not doing well. Are they meeting, or not meeting expectations? We like a 4-point, multi-rater scale instead of a 5-point, because 3 doesn't tell us anything if it's on a 5-point scale. It's good on a 1 to 4. 3 and 4 means they're performing well. 1 and 2 is so if we have any concerns about performance, we should be acknowledging that. So that's something to think about, is how do we improve our feedback and coaching approach in our firm. We know a lot of firms have been working that. We've been working with a lot of, leaders about how to deliver really good, actionable, specific feedback. So that's something to think about as you get into, evaluation season. And then another place where you could be having a hard conversation is when somebody's not being promoted. And if we're not being specific about the feedback, what they need to do to be promoted, we're saying things like, keep doing the same thing, keep getting more work experience, those kinds of phrases. And we write them in their performance feedback, and then we wonder why they're surprised or even upset. It's almost like they've been strung along. They're like, I have kept going. I have kept getting, technical, increased technical competence. I have been working on more diverse, engagements, but I'm still not ready. How come? And we're not being specific enough about what that is. And so, and then worse, they watch their peers. Maybe they started as interns together, or they started as a new, staff together, and their peers are progressing. And they're like, why am I not progressing along with them? Or maybe they progressed along with them to, staff 2 and senior and supervisor, but not to manager. And so that feedback and that career paths and what's really next, and that specificity is so important, for us to be documenting and, sharing with people so that they know, how they can progress. And if there's a limitation in our roles or, within our departments or service lines, we should be honest about that too. Especially as we get to some of those higher levels, sometimes that's, I don't need another service manager per se. Although if we're growing, we could grow into that. But, sometimes there are economics or, other reasons that we're not promoting. We would be as transparent and straight about that as possible, so that they understand you do risk losing them, when you share that. But you're going to risk losing them if we string them along and we're not straight about what they need to do to progress. And so, again, back to that level of specificity about feedback, what's missing? What does more technical experience look like? Or what does, higher visibility and increased communication with the clients? What does that mean? And what does that look like? Or, maybe there is something that they're doing that is awkward, that I have to share, about how they communicate or their sense of humor, or, how they are in meetings. And we're avoiding giving that kind of feedback. And that often is the thing that holds people back.
Yeah.
And it's so awkward for us that we don't give that feedback, but then we keep having these, conversations, you're not ready yet. And, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the team, by the way, because we're not elevating people. And it just takes a lot of our time and, department heads' times, et cetera. So, being really, really specific and transparent about, what's next, and teaching people. I don't know how often we're, getting in with those career managers and those that are filling out evaluations and, talking about, what's expected when they complete those evaluations on people, whether I'm the career advisor or I work with somebody and Jen's the career advisor, but I'm inputting to the, evaluation. And, if I just, say things like, keep doing what you're doing, Jen's like, that's not very helpful as the career advisor. So anyway, that's, tied to what you were saying, Jen, but then also looking forward, even with people that we want to progress and help progress. We make mistakes in our lack of feedback, lack of straightness, lack of specificity, I think.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So the lack of straightness is the first thing I want to grab a hold of there, Tamara. And there are a lot of people coming out of this busy season. If this is review and promotion season in your organization, they could be at that place where they think they might be eligible for a promotion, or they might think they're a little past due.
Right.
And there are a bunch of firms, and we hear about it all the time because we are exposed to young people, thank goodness, through our leadership work with senior supervisors, managers, senior managers, young and newer partners. We talk to all of them. And we hear that, we do these reviews and we aren't straight. We don't say, you might be thinking that you're due for promotion. I want you to be that straight. And we would love to promote you, but there are a few things that need to be addressed first. Just say it, man. Don't ignore it and leave it, because there are some that won't have the courage to say, hey, I would have thought by now I would be promoted. Some will, but we know about half of the profession is decently conflict avoidant, accommodating, and really wonderfully nice. And they won't ask. They'll go home to their family and say, oh my gosh, I didn't get promoted again. And their family's going to say, hey, man, there's a shortage of you out there. I think you should search. They need to go home and say, I didn't get promoted again, but I got some really good specific feedback about what I need to do to get promoted and when we'll look at it again. And when Tamara says specific, holy mackerel, improve technically is the least specific thing I've ever heard. Keep doing what you're doing is pretty rough also. Improve your client relationship skills. No, none of that's getting there. That's all like throwaway language. Or improve your professional image, or there's another saying that people say that's really like super general around professional image. And whatever it is, those things are tossaways. We don't know what to do with them. So I just beg you to look at the technical rubric and physically figure out where are the technical mistakes happening and be specific. Is it a certain kind of return, or is there a certain level of analytics that we're not getting on the audit side, or is there a certain amount of real understanding of attention to detail, perhaps on the financial statements, or whatever it is. Let's be specific so these people can really shine and improve and step into what you're asking of them. And those little things that Tamara said that are awkward are often the easiest for them to address.
Yes.
So I can't promote you until you start writing full sentences, and you can't, you really, ChatGPT can help with that. You know what I mean? There's so many things. Your professional image needs to improve. That includes sharpening up your look when we're on client calls. You have to, put on a collared shirt, please, or I need you to not wear a ball cap. Whatever the feedback is, it's not that hard to give it. And it's much harder to replace the person, or worse, deal with their kind of ongoing malaise as they get less and less motivated because they can't figure out why they're not progressing. So as you're doing those reviews this year, or helping your team members do them, please teach them how to be as straight and specific as possible.
Yes. It's a gift. Feedback is a gift. And so that's how we view it. We appreciate it when people are that straight with us. And so we want to pay that forward and give it to them. Jen, I think one more, maybe we have a quick time for, but we just really want you to be thinking about what are some of the messages, some of the communications, some of the things that are coming up that, you could help facilitate planning for, positioning, communicating. And another one that, we thought of was, all right, what's next? And for some people, I want to take a breath. I want to take a vacation. I want to not work, this crazy schedule that I've been working perhaps. My mind, I need my mind to relax, my brain to relax. All of that's valid. And we should offer that. And I did see in social media last week, some people were closed, the 16th, some people were closed the week, or some people had some flexible. And so their out of office messages were, we're going to be flexible in our time here, which I think was all great. And, as audit, deadlines pass and consulting project deadlines pass, we do need to figure out that we do need to give people time to rest. But we also need to keep going. And I'll just use tax as an example. So we're going to come out of the tax busy season here. And, then we slow down, and then we come into end of August and we're all stressed out again. And we could prevent that, which means we need to manage deadlines, internal deadlines, have a schedule of everything, be producing, knowing what our deliverables are going to be. And that could feel like, maybe uncool, or, like hardcore, like we're just never letting up or something. But if we don't, we create, another, stressful season that doesn't have to be as stressful. It could be smoother. We could have a lot more things in. We could figure out how do we communicate to our clients now that we extended. On the audit side, we might finish, some of the audits that were due here this spring, and then we get into summer season, or we get into, governmental or not-for-profit or employee benefit season this fall, right? And it just feels like it keeps coming. How do we manage that stream of work and anticipate it and plan for it so it can feel doable, instead of it like peaking, instead of creating, maybe self-creating some of these peaks, instead of us getting, a hold of the reins and managing it. And so how do we communicate, how do we plan for that first as leaders? And then second, how do we communicate that, to our team members? Hey, this is, what it's going to look like as we now look at the summer. And so how do we plan that accordingly? And CPE and some vacations, hopefully, and, all of those other things that need to go in there. But that could, be a hard message to swallow here at the end of April. And, we've got to think about it, carefully. So
big time. And the reason we have these peak periods that are so untenable is because we allow ourselves to have these kind of deep troughs in between them. And we don't necessarily consistently, proactively improve or, automate or take on initiatives that need to happen, fire clients right now. For instance, third week of May, we would say trim the client base from those that don't pay, that are mean, that we think are risky, any of that needs to be cleaned up. There's a bunch of stuff you could do proactively. And we know in HR, you're like, well, I can't do that. No, you can call the service line leaders and call the management in your organization to say, hey, by all means rest after this peak period, but don't let up, because we might be able to have the fall peak period be better.
Right.
If we all keep our eye on the ball here this summer and make the improvements we know we can make. And to have that conversation, not sort of one-on-one or out of frustration when people aren't responding because you found a great candidate, but now they're not available to interview them or something, but instead like call a meeting and say, hey guys, let's try something different. And let's not all just disperse and, lay down and rest and then wake up and freak out that it's August and we aren't in any better shape than we were.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
there's a lot we can do and a lot we can anticipate. And that should be part of the message and the communication about it is, how do we get ahead of it? How do we plan for it? How do we communicate with our clients? How do we do a better job of managing our clients? What else can we put in order and, get it scheduled, look out, and have some visioning for that. So, and we're sure there's some other, difficult things coming up here this spring. We'd be interested in knowing what they are, helping with positioning. So you can message us, let us know. But we just wanted you to be thinking about that and, helping drive that positioning, helping anticipate it and have it be thoughtful and meaningful and, as specific as possible. So we wish you all well these next couple of weeks, and we'll look forward to seeing you on next week's HR Huddle. Thank you for being with us today.